Donald, why are you crying?
I'm not crying. You're crying.
I assure you, my tear ducts are completely dry.
Yeah, well, mine are too. I'm not sobbing like a lunatic over here. These aren't tear stains down my cheeks. They're not, okay? They're not.
All right, calm down.
You calm down.
Okay, let's take a deep breath.
You take a deep breath.
Donald, if you're going to be like this, I'm just going to go.
You just go. Wait, that doesn't work.
Seriously, what's the problem?
Nothing at all. On an unrelated note, I'm working on a list of 30 ways I could die. Number 1, I could fall asleep at the wheel. Number 2, I could lift something a pound too heavy. Number 3, I could break my back from sneezing too hard.
Oh, I know what this is about.
This is after I completed my list of 30 ways I'm behind other folks my age, and after my list of 30 ways I could go broke in a day. Topping the list is an unexpected tax payment, so yay!
Donald, it's not that bad.
Don't you get it, David?
I get it, Donald, I get it.
I'm 30! I just turned 30 freaking years old!
Oh, that's right, you did. I totally forgot.
Really? You forgot?
Of course I didn't forget. That's why. This week, we at the Ritwit are sponsored by the Tricenarian Gift Package to help all new 30-somethings make their way into the adult world. First in this package is your very own engraved checkbook for balancing all those finances. Second up, here we have a playlist of meditative music to help you relax and sleep at night. For all those times the temperature is 1 degree off and you feel those rushing chills.
I'm so old!
And of course, no Tricenarian Gift Package is complete without listings for venues to help build your 401k, so you can retire in a couple decades with assured prosperity.
Retire? Retire? I'm only a couple decades away from retirement? No, I can't. I can't keep aging. Time is poison. I gotta stop it. I gotta suck the time poison out.
Donald, calm down.
We have that chronostasis machine, don't we? Can't we just use that on the world and keep everything paused forever? Sure, nothing will get done, but at least won't be stuck on this conveyor belt of doom towards our inevitable entropic slaughter.
Donald, relax, okay? Relax. It's all right to feel like this.
It is?
Of course it is. It's natural to be all too aware of our mortality at this age, but the important thing is we'll get through it together. We'll keep going. We'll keep writing our books, creating content, and displaying our art for the world, no matter how advanced our years will be.
I suppose you're right. Although I don't know how you know this. You're younger than me.
Not by much, though.
True. Hey, that means you're not very far from yourself in the big 30. Only 8 months, right?
Yeah. You're right.
David?
8 months. 8 short months away. Oh, God! I don't want to be 30! I don't want to feel old! I want to play laser tag forever!
I want that too! We gotta stop time, David!
We can't stop time! We're all bitches to Father Time!
Life is meaningless! Death is inevitable!
Happy birthday, Donald.
Thanks, man.
Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of the Ritwit, the show with the vastest sum of flagrant drollery and decadence that degrades the adroitness of scriveners every moment it endures. On an unrelated note, thank you, Donald, for the thesaurus. It's a great gift.
It certainly is. Not that you need it, Mr. Vocabulary Vitamin of the Month, your vocabulary pharmaceutical agent, what's the term? For pharmacist.
Pharmacy technician is,
okay.
Well, or pharmacist, I guess, but pharmacy technician. I actually had a guy I went to college with who went on to be a farm tech.
Oh, so. Well, I'm sure he's much more successful than us. It's a lucrative field.
He works for Walgreens.
Oh, yes, you get to prescribe drugs to people.
Nah, I don't know if they do the prescribing so much as they just, fill the orders and stuff.
That's true. One of my good friends, she's pharmaceutical tech too, and so I sometimes go to say hi to her. We actually met at, she was a customer at my coffee shop that shall not be named for comedic reasons. And then we ran
that you don't even work at anymore.
Yeah, they don't even work at anymore. But I might be going back to, so once again.
Oh!
It'll be for
might
legal
not
reasons.
Be for
So it's a good thing I've kept it unnamed this long.
Wow, good grief. No, you did name it.
No, I know I named it.
So. Anyway. And,
I'm only going back.
Rabbit-eared listeners can go back and find the very skit where we did that, probably.
I think I mentioned it a few times since then. But no, I might be going back for the 401k. It's not really for the income. I'm still doing other stuff for the income. But anyways.
Anyhow.
Figure out your income, guys, when you get old like we do.
When you're closing in on 30 like both of us are.
All right, well, let's start with the usual. Since the first of our set, we start with what will we rip off from this month, and you get to go first, David.
Fantastic, thanks very much. I found a book, which is actually the first of a set. I want to say a trilogy, but I don't know because I haven't yet looked this up. But anyway, it's about Eidolon. This book is titled The Secret Country.
What's Eidolon you?
Sounds like an insult made on an acid trip. Anyway, there are some elements that remind me of Harry Potter, parts Narnia.
Yes.
But one thing they espouse in the series is how knowing somebody's, or maybe even some things, true name gives irrevocable power over them. Up to the third time you call it.
Well, the true name thing, didn't the Inheritance series do that too? The Inheritance Cycle?
You think I remember Inheritance Cycle at this point?
I don't know. I think they might have.
Since this seems to be the theme of my ripping off for the month, I will also talk about this one, and that is recently finished a very recent show in the Sentai series.
Oh, yes.
Another dinosaur one, actually.
Oh, yes. Okay, now I'm interested.
Where they didn't actually use the full team roll call quite so often. So when it does happen, all of a sudden there are goosebumps, amazing moments waiting to happen. As I said, theme to this one, and that is having a limit to the number of times you employ the same tactic.
Yes.
Be it narrative device, roll call, simply using a keyword. By finding ways to create around this tests you more as a writer than simply doing it the same way every time to make a pattern.
Right,
keep
exactly.
a pattern. Needing to come up with pet names for things so you don't foolishly waste all 3 chances at utter control of another entity, like the main character in the book.
Right, exactly.
Or finding ways to subvert the typical roll call formula. I like seeing those things play out more than the textbook same way, different day method.
Yes, exactly. That is a good way to do it. So.
I suppose some people don't mind it, but particularly when you're bound by the same spine of a book, having the team call its full special title several times just gets too repetitive to me.
And we are Zero Ranger Fies.
So I'll avoid it and not make a comment about that bad joke. In fact, the fun twist on it, I already have a plan in place to use this very concept.
Oh.
Although I must admit the serendipity, I've been stewing on that concept for years, not just since watching this particular stuff.
Right,
so,
exactly.
But I have a plan to use, the limit being important.
Right.
As a creator, but even in the story.
Whoa! That sounds so intricate. How do you do it?
By not actually writing, apparently.
That is true. I actually am the one getting writing done.
I just conceptualize. That's what I do. Anyway.
That's what, to be fair, a lot of writers do that. Like, ow, I'm so old, I pulled some muscle. Just moved a bit too wrong, and my body's just falling apart.
I mean, you've almost completed your 30th trip around the sun.
Yeah, it's true because, your first trip around the sun is
0
to 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, enough of that depressing note.
How about you, Donald?
I've been playing a game called Iron Harvest, a new real-time strategy game that's basically my upcoming book, Teslanauts, but explicitly as an alternate history rather than like a hidden part of history as I portray it in Teslanauts, which you will buy eventually on Amazon.com. Like I say it threateningly, you will eventually buy on Amazon.
But I mean, hopefully, if you're supporting our podcast, if you're a patron, etc.
Yeah, because subscribe to our Patreon. It takes place post World War I, but everyone has mechs.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that early?
And new factions have arisen based on old factions, like the Rusviets.
Gee, I wonder what that's supposed to be.
Yeah, 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count.
Let's see. Germany and Austria. Australia and New Zealand.
Oh, well, you missed your third.
No, because it was combined, right?
Oh, okay.
So
well, I didn't say it was combined.
Russia and
you
the
said
Soviets.
It was based off of
Russia and the Soviets.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Some other ones based off of like Poland and Germany and the United States. As I was playing this game, I was like, "Damn, it's almost uncanny how similar this is to Teslanauts." Did I preemptively rip this off?
No, they ripped you off.
That's the thing. Like, this came out last year, and it had some DLC updates since then. Meanwhile, I've been playing Teslanauts since roughly 2011.
I think that I mean, you mentioned that they combine factions together. You don't really do that, so I suppose
I guess that's true. And also, to be fair,
there is enough
dieselpunk is an
differentiating
old genre. I mean, not that old. It's not as new. It's newer than steampunk. And in fact, actually, this is based off of a board game called Scythe. Have you heard of Scythe?
I think I have, but I've never
It's
played
in the
it.
same world as Scythe, apparently. So, of course, there's still a lot different. It's just the dieselpunk genre in a nutshell. But I remember actually being utterly flabbergasted when it's revealed that these mechs were built by none other than Nikola Tesla himself. Whoa! Again, though, Tesla has a lot of unique stuff to it, so I don't think it's a total ripoff.
I mean, Nikola Tesla is an actual historical figure. It's not like he'd be unique.
And people have decided he's built mechs before, like in fiction. He was a good mech builder.
Yeah.
There needs to be a 1920s Pacific Rim.
Because the Jaegers were awesome.
They were awesome. Imagine them built with dieselpunk.
In the time of I don't know. Anyway, you talking in the time of or in the style of dieselpunk?
Even the buildings back then weren't that tall, let alone the robots.
Yeah, so how would a Jaeger be that tall back then? But anyway.
By the power of the human
By the power of
imagination.
Grayskull.
I was going to say by the power of the human imagination, but sure, let's go for a reference. Why not?
It isn't us if we aren't making references.
Of course, of course. A fun thing at the beginning of the campaign of Iron Harvest is the tutorial and how it endears you to the main character while also teaching you the gameplay mechanics.
Sure.
One of those mechanics is cover, where his infantry hide behind walls and shoot from there to gain a protection buff. So to teach you that and to teach you combat, the first mission has you playing as the main character as a little girl, throwing snowballs at the boy kids who taunt her and saying she can't fight. You hide behind walls and right-click to attack just as in combat, but it's a snowball, so there's no stakes.
Innocence corrupted.
It's endearing.
Yeah, it's endearing, but then all of a sudden you use it and it's no longer snowballs.
No, it's definitely not. There needs to be a full RTS game where it's just snowballs. Rather than killing...
Watch it be Christmas.
I've always wanted to do a Christmas RTS.
I remember you planned one.
There'd be 3 factions. There'd be Santa Claus and his elves, Jack Frost and his ice minions, and then the Candy King and his candy people.
There you go. Wow, we're so creative on the but anyway.
Anyways, so also you meet the little girl's father and brother, and then you also save a bear cub because you accidentally killed a mother.
Oops.
So
innocence crushed.
So then it grows up with you and then helps you in combat. So that's pretty cool.
So you're just gonna send, all right, go get him, Sparky. Maul.
Yeah, they have guns and mechs, but sure, send a bear their way. Bears are badass, man.
You don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to be faster than the slowest
and
person.
in this way, also, she can hopefully, try and endear herself to the Russviets, try and hide as one of them because they love them bears in Russia.
Yeah, she might as well live in Chicago because they love the bears.
The Burrs, yep. Or she should have gone to my college of University of Northern Colorado. Sports team, I've said this before, sports team names are so uncreative. It's either like the Tigers or the Bears or the Wildcats, the Bull. Where are the Camels?
Because you can't make a camel mascot look awesome. Especially, how would you do that? Like,
just have a pantomime. Where are the horses? Where are the Mustangs?
There are Mustangs. My brother played for a Mustangs team. But
where are the wolves? Why
there are some of those too.
Oh, there are?
Yeah.
I know there's one basketball team that's like the Spiders.
There was a baseball team a long time ago that was the Spiders. Currently, basketball, I don't think there's a Spiders.
Aww.
There is a Timberwolves.
Okay.
But, I mean, the thing
Where are the Snakes?
The Diamondbacks.
Oh, yeah.
For what it's worth, I mean, the reason they choose those animals that sound fierce is because why would you want to put yourself behind this peaceful herbivore creature and
I
say,
get that.
That's your awesome
I know,
team,
but
go!
It's always the same fierce animals. Always some sort of cat or like...
fair enough.
Usually something like that. Like
there could be a lot more creativity.
I mean, bulls
we
are kind of good. Like, what about like the rhinos? Where are the rhinos? Rhinos are fierce.
Fierce, but do you really want to make a joke about the endangered species and
they
get beat
Where are the
down?
pandas?
Well, oh yeah, sure. No, that's great.
Also, tigers are endangered, and so they're like the most common not baseball, just sports team name.
Among them. Anyways,
Anyways.
enough about bears and tigers.
That's just a unique way to teach the game mechanics while also doing some character work. Like, that's what I'd rip off. Coming up with unique ways to endear readers to your main character. It's not an RTS game. Plus, the preemptive ripoff of stealing their idea years before it came out. The sheer audacity, I know.
Yeah, preemptive rip-off, or did they rip you off? That's the question.
It's like, I pre-planned to rip it off. And speaking of which, of course, now you take the time to step away from the microphone.
Sorry, my computer's
When I did that great joke.
Yeah, well, you have a good segue. What do you need me to say?
I just need you to roll your eyes at it because you hate my segue jokes.
Fine, I'll roll my eyes. You just can't see it.
Your eyes are rolled. Is it hot in here? Is that why you opened that? Yeah. Okay, so before we writers do the actual writing of the stories, we have to pre-plan some things. I mean, I suppose we don't have to. Some NaNoWriMo writers don't, although a lot of them do, I know.
I was about to say I do, but...
But it's best to have an idea of where you're starting, so in this set we're talking about all the writing before the writing.
See, this is what I do before Nano. I have to plan my concept and stuff.
It's
right?
like, can I really devote 50,000 words to this?
Well, I've skirted around that. I mean, the thing about Nano being simply quantity,
Yes.
you can change plans midstream, and as long as you get the word count, what cares?
Right. I guess that's true.
So, anyway.
So the concept building, the character creating, the plot writing, and the inciting incidents. Before you sit down and start the first word of your first draft, there's a lot of things you should plan first. And that's what the set is about. First off, the initial concept and hook. What are some ways to find an idea that interests you, and how will you know if you found it?
I mean, we've talked about inspiration in a previous episode, or even an entire set, even. But brief recap for those of you who are relatively new to the show. These ideas could come spur of the moment.
Right.
Out in the world, middle of mundane tasks, tangent thought from something else you were considering. The trick is refining that initial germ and building from it.
Right, exactly.
I mean, once it sticks in your brain, in spite of all the other distractions of real life, it's a solid idea. Just note that solid doesn't mean final or even great, but it's workable.
Well, and it's something that interests you enough that you keep coming back to it to improve it. Like, it's the basis of the idea. It's the inception of the idea, you know?
And speaking of... No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we're talking about that later. I don't think it's this episode.
No, it's not this episode. But for what it's worth, I mean, when you get that moment of inspiration, if you don't act on it immediately or within a short enough term, it's probably going to go away.
That's true.
However, those raw ideas generally have more quality to them than we like to ascribe, because that's what starts the whole process.
Right, exactly.
Once you get that and then you go further, and then you decide, well, okay, that does sound kind of silly on its face, so let me change this aspect of it, and then all of a sudden
it's
you're
just
plotting.
The aspects, though. Yeah, exactly. Then you're plotting, but the initial spark of it still interests you, so you can work with that. And that's the thing. You got to think about all the little things that interest you in life, things that you like to learn more about, things you find fascinating, and have looked up even beyond doing them for work or a creative project.
Yep.
Like, these are the ideas that you know will carry your interest throughout a whole book or series because you already have that inherent interest.
That's why I write about Power Rangers all the time.
That's why my first story was about dinosaurs.
I was about to say why your published stories, buy them at Amazon.com for print or Kindle.
Yeah, exactly. They're dinosaur stuff. So I wrote a dinosaur sci-fi because I also like sci-fi. But I also like steampunk, dieselpunk, heroic fantasy, and action, as well as astronomy, geology, and certain parts of history.
Let's just ignore the Civil War. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. What are they called? Ironclads are really cool.
Fair enough.
That's an impressive feat of engineering.
Yeah.
It's like a Civil War battleship.
That is true. And they weren't really used outside the Civil War.
No.
By the way...
And I think they were just Confederates, unfortunately.
If Joel is listening, please correct us if we're wrong. Thanks.
Yes, he would know. But also, friend of the show, Natasha. We talked about this on an upcoming episode of Paleo Bites.
Is that a spoiler, sire? No. Is that
for a different
foghorn?
show?
Anyway.
It's for a different show.
All right. We won't do this
so we talk about special experimental Civil War submarines.
How in the world
I
did
know.
you get around to that on Paleo Bites?
I
guess I'll have to find out.
I think it was the Mega Neuro episode where it's like a big dragonfly.
I think I'll have to find out, because this is just, that does not go in my head when Paleo Bites is concerned.
No, I forgot how we brought it up.
Anyways. You obviously, we are, no matter how passionate you are about one thing, it's not the only thing you like. So it could come from any of those aspects of your life.
Yeah, exactly. But But so because I have all those things that interest me, naturally I have plans for ideas featuring each of those things.
So let's see. You're going to have steampunk covered.
I don't know if steampunk is covered.
Oh, okay. So you still have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, possibly 7 story ideas. So you're not going to be a one-note writer. Got it.
Yes. And actually, I think we'll get to... I forget if it's this episode where I talk about... I'll get to it when I get to it, but anyway. I just need to add the Tim
sounds
Allen.
like a Tim Allen.
Yeah, no, I just need to add the... Anytime anyone mentions Tim Allen ever, they say,
that's what you think of.
I've never actually seen him actually say it. I know it's like in Home Improvement.
I was going to say
but
that.
I don't remember enough of Home Improvement to...
It's been a while since I've seen that. Anyway.
I think it's on Disney Plus, so...
Oh, good. Just what you needed. Another show to binge on Disney Plus.
I did watch some Boy Meets World on Disney Plus recently.
Topanga was very, very good looking. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on.
She grew in very good ways.
We're almost 30. We can say this.
Was she 18 when the show ended? Hopefully so.
She's no longer 18, that's for sure.
But just if I'm going to appreciate her on the show, maybe in like the last season she's 18. But so we're only talking about then. I swear.
I swear. All right. Anyhow.
Right. Also, what kind of name is Topanga? Like.
It's about as good as Bazinga, except that's not a name, I suppose.
I guess she started out as like a hippie, so.
Probably her parents had a... Anyway, moving on.
Her character in the first season was very different from her character in the later season. So anyway.
What an idea, character progression. But we're not talking about characters. We're talking about other
We're not
things.
talking about Boy Meets World, though?
We were, but I'm saying for the episode, we're not talking
Anyways,
about
how do you know if your concept is best for a long-form story, like, say, a boy growing up as they go through school and to a college and then being stalked by the same teacher the whole time? A short story. Or probably not good for a story at all.
Like the one you just described.
Well, that lasted 7 seasons.
Your scale should have something to do with this, of course. It can't be space opera if you aren't featuring multiple worlds as it relates to the happening.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, the right length is something you have to be realistic with yourself about, like knowing when the welcome wears out.
Yes.
The best long-running franchises have contenders for worst entry because that was the year/book/episode where ideas weren't quite sufficient or creative enough.
Right, exactly.
And it's not usually the last one. It's usually somewhere in the middle. Like they just run through this dry spell. But
makes sense,
but they're still good enough to keep riding in the coattails of what came before and get to wherever they end, you know?
Well, that's good at least.
Compound that issue with delusions of grandeur, and trust me, I've suffered those myself, and all of a sudden you have an inappropriate number of things to tackle within the scale you've chosen.
That makes sense. It basically depends on like how big is the idea. Like, how is it only about a few characters in a contemporary setting?
Romance novels.
Yeah, exactly. Probably best for a single installment or a short story.
Which is why they don't typically have sequels.
Yeah, not usually. Love Never Dies never happened, guys. I don't care what. You know that sequel? Fan of the Opera sequel?
I actually really like a couple of songs from Love Never Dies.
I'm sure it's great. Andrew Lloyd Webber, despite the Broadway community being like, "Ooh," he's a great songwriter. So
anyway, no, Love Never Dies is the very, very not known sequel
very
to
divisive sequel.
Fan of the Opera. Well, and it's kind of strange. Like, why is there a story after what we saw? That's the big thing.
My favorite ending to Fan of the Opera is still the movie version, where it goes to when they're old, and he cuts to Christine's grave, and you see like Raoul there, who's really old, but then he looks and you see like a flower there, and you can know that the Phantom put that there. That is so sad. That's one of the few times in the movie that consistently makes me cry. Like, that is like he never stopped loving her and gave her respects when she died. Like,
well, and as long as you're around to do such.
Mm-hmm.
And
anyway,
the saying goes, if you truly love something, let them go.
Mm-hmm. That's what happens.
And
that's the thing. So, is it okay? So, if it's like a few characters in contemporary setting, probably best for a single installment short story. If it's in a huge constructed world with many characters and interesting environments,
Wheel of Time.
Yeah, Dune. Which I think actually, is there more than one book?
I don't know. I don't
Well, it's a
know
long
what
form
it
story
is.
for sure, and then it's
I haven't even really heard about it much.
I
so.
know that the movie that's coming out that's going to bomb.
Oh God.
I'm calling it. It's going to bomb. I mean, everyone thinks it's going to bomb, but it's
Rit
going
wit, come for the writ, stay for the movie takes.
to. It's only adapting the first half of the book.
I mean, that's a long story, even if it's not multiple installments.
But anyways, is it merely a concept without characters, but describing emotions and feelings? Well, that's just a poem.
Go up for a slam. You don't need a story for that.
Naturally, there's no hard and fast rules about any of this, but this is generally how these ideas are perceived.
Right.
Generally, though, if you want to do something a little outside the usual scale of your idea, I'd say it's best to aim downwards rather than upwards, i.e. a huge, high-concept world with many characters that's one installment, rather than a small-scale story stretched too thin into something larger. Would you agree with that?
So you're saying like your scale, but then still aim down, so you're keeping the scope of the book or the tale a little smaller?
Yes.
Okay. Rather than overextending.
Yeah, exactly. The
I'd
scope
agree
is
with
bigger
that.
than the scale.
I'd agree with that. But for my own take, the way you worded it right here kind of sounds like you don't want to even challenge yourself per se as a writer, which I'm not sure I agree with. From the
you
perspective
can challenge yourself.
For the perspective of aiming upwards, you have to know when enough is enough, what you're good at, what you can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with testing your boundaries as a writer with, I want to make this into a long-form story, but there might come a point where you have to say, this isn't working.
Yeah, and what I mean by aim downwards rather than upwards is like the scale of the story versus how long you want it to be, more than like, no, of course aim up in terms of ambition.
Yeah, I was
like that, of course.
Well, because you were saying, outside your usual scale, outside what you normally do, that's why I was interpreting it that way.
What the usual scale
of this particular
of the
concept.
idea. Like
Yeah.
if it's a small scale story or a large scale story, but you want to do multiple installments or one short installment.
As a musician, one thing that I've heard consistently across every level, every place that I've ever, made music with other people, the phrase is you always leave the audience wanting more.
Yes.
If you do too much and they're like, oh, they should have stopped a few songs ago, that doesn't do anybody any favors except, maybe you got to sing more of your repertoire.
It's true.
But that doesn't really leave a good taste in the audience's mouth. That doesn't make them care about what you bring. That doesn't make them want to buy all those CDs you've made. It doesn't,
It's like one of the reasons why I don't know why demos aren't a thing anymore for video games. There's so many times where you get like a demo for a game and you're like, this is so cool, I want to buy the full version.
Well, there's something to be said about game trailers and being
realistic
to what the final product is.
Yeah. Anyways, what means, though, are best for logging these ideas down? I.e., keep stewing them in your brain, pencil or notepad, a loose document on the computer, those kind of things.
I think if you don't mind a bunch of starts, some of them will be false, it's a good idea to have some plans down on computer memory, which is far less likely to fail compared to your own.
Isn't that the truth?
Look at our respective answers and see if we use a different method from the one we tout, by the way.
We are inconsistent and hypocritical on this show, so...
Even if you never access the file again, at least you made the effort to write down the concepts.
Right.
Saying that, pruning them or tweaking it to fit another different idea germ is a really good practice.
Yes.
You never know when an old idea you otherwise never developed could come in handy somewhere else.
Right, that makes sense.
Which is why I think having those extra ideas down, so I have way more dropped fanfiction series than I have, worked on ones. And so if I wanted to use those ideas, use those characters, something else, and, borrow it for another story that I'm actually, focused on.
I do that all the time, so yeah.
I mean, that just makes more sense. Whereas if I'm trying to leave it to my own head and how life kind of, bothers you, got tons of information coming in every day from various sources, and then all of a sudden, wait, what? Kind of like our ad today.
Yes, wait, what? There's nothing here? No!
No, we don't have a magical device.
What ad? There's no ad today. There was going to be an ad, but then you took it away from me.
No, there was no product that could solve that precise problem. So.
It's a shame.
It is a shame. I'll admit that. I'll be the first to say that. But
someone come up with an idea like that can help us do that. We'll sponsor it.
And let us know. Get in touch with us. We'll tell you how at the end of the episode.
At MattD@MatthewDollarCareer.com.
It's in the description. Anyway.
All right. So
How about you, though?
Best place to put it is in the head, obviously. You never forget them there.
Sure, never.
Unless you have anxiety or a drinking problem, or just a bad memory,
Oh,
or
that's
are
where you're
busy
going.
with work or your family or taking care of the house. Other than that, you're set. In all seriousness, though, it depends on the person. If an idea really intrigues me, I tend to actually not write it down. And
Not
just,
right away.
And just remember it. But that only works if because I have an obsessive mind. And and if I like something, I'll stick to it.
I think we already said a little bit earlier that, if you keep coming back to it despite
Mm-hmm.
everything, then it's good.
Exactly. And this also works as a filtering system for me, whether or not I like an idea enough or not. If I don't like it, I tend to forget it. If I do, I stick to it, and then I know it's an idea worth doing. I mean, of course, the more intricate stuff like the plot and the characters and other stuff, of course I write those down. I mean, like the initial concept. The initial
concept doesn't have to be written down at the moment you are inspired.
Mm-hmm.
If you're lucky enough to have the stuff nearby, great. A little pocket recorder.
Oh, yes. For more on that, whatever episode we did that.
Ding.
So, should you start with something closer to home, your comfort zone, before tweaking a concept into something different from what you've written before?
In the initial planning stages, I tend to follow on the same old lines when making things work.
Yes.
Probably due to two factors, skill and passion.
Yes.
Fan fiction is low-hanging fruit. It's putting your favorite spin on something done wrong, which makes it inherently easy to write.
Right, exactly.
Doesn't make it inherently great quality.
Of course not.
That's precisely why we should try to stretch our wings.
Yes.
Maybe the first storyboard is akin to what you've done before, but by the time the final draft comes to fruition, it might not resemble that much at all.
Mm-hmm.
A while back, a former roommate, not the one I'm recording with right now, and I did a simple add-on story, and one scene I had the privilege of writing was about boxing. Do I know much about boxing?
No.
Heck no.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's boxing? Is that when you put boxes on? No, I know what boxing is.
But I remember the reaction he had when seeing the finished product. He thought it was amazing. Despite a lack of experience, and truthfully not much more in the way of research. I mean, I know a little bit about boxing, so I use that. I made a compelling scene beyond what I normally write. And to be honest, whether it stands up to criticism from actual boxing intelligent folk or not, I'm not so sure that isn't an oxymoron, by the way. I am pleased with the result.
No, I get that. And I remember for one of my short stories I wrote in college when I was at a short story workshop class and part of the English major, when I decided to write a story called Thai Beetle Tournament. This is based off an actual, I don't know if
Beetle fighting.
I don't know if it's actual sport is the term.
Yeah, that's really tough. You're obviously competing against someone else who's
you have a
trained
beetle
for this thing, but
you have
it's
two
not
beetles.
You.
Because beetles, the rhinoceros beetle in the wild, when they fight for a mate, they tend to get on a log and then fight until one of them throws the other one off. And in actual parts of Southeast Asia, all throughout Southeast Asia, but particularly in places like Thailand and Burma and other stuff like that, they make it a game. They have each
They bet on it even.
They bet. Yeah, they make bets on who they think is going to win. So I was like, what if there's a whole tournament about it? And I decided the story set in Bangkok that about this guy who was fighting in a Thai beetle tournament. So it took the actual sport and exaggerated. There was an announcer, there were sponsors.
And the other beetle manages to get his horn underneath the first one and throws it over the side.
Up, and that beetle wins. They have names. They even have little costumes that they put on the beetles.
Just make it freaking lucha libre.
So, I don't know, I had fun with it. But yeah, I had to do research on, that and how Bangkok is and Thai names and other stuff. Thailand's a cool place.
I mean, I was visiting with an acquaintance of mine the other day, and he was talking about how, in history classes for American students, we learn somewhat history about Europe and Africa and South America and only parts of Asia, like Western Asia, as it relates to American history.
Right.
But Eastern Asia, we really don't touch. It's kind of forgotten. And so a lot of people get to research that stuff for whatever reason, and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Well, it's true. And it's also there's also different parts of East Asia. When people think of East Asia, you usually think of China and Japan and Korea. But there's also Southeast Asia, which is its own separate thing. Kind of like how Raya and the Last Dragon, that new Disney movie that came out. It's fantasy, but it's a fantasy world. But it's based more on Southeast Asian rather than Chinese. So I know there are a lot of pundits who are like, oh, but this is based on China, obviously. This is Chinese tale. This is meant to cater to China, not realizing that it's a whole different part of the world. But
Well, and anytime you get a chance to see other cultures in action, it's usually good research, if nothing else.
absolutely.
So,
Anyways, it depends though in terms of like an idea that like going beyond your comfort zone. It depends on what you're trying to do, but generally, if you're a more experienced writer, it can be better to step a little out of your comfort zone in order to do something new while also staying in it enough to maintain your interest and keep you excited to write it.
a lot of things you talked about doing the research for the Thai Beetle tournament story that you did, and there's always kind of a new car smell when you're researching something. If you do it because you want to research it, not because you're being told to, for right that moment, it's really fascinating, even if you don't know it very well.
Exactly. No, I definitely felt that way about a lot of different things. So.
I know when I was in college and I started picking up piano for classes again, it was like really fascinating. Like I spent more time practicing piano than I did violin because I'd already played violin for several years at that point.
Right. That makes sense.
And that same thing happened when I started playing viola when I went over to Japan.
Yes.
And then I'm like, this is amazing and fun. Not very technically challenging, but it's like, I mean, all of the techniques that I already knew were transferring over to this new instrument, and it's the new thing in the room. It's getting all the attention.
It's pretty cool, though. You're right. That is a good way to describe it, the new car smell sort of thing. But it's just like, you got to sometimes step out of your comfort zone, especially like, again, if you're more experienced writing, you've written stuff. Like, I don't think I've said this before on the podcast, but maybe I have, who knows. But here's something you might not know about me. I plan my Megazoic book series to be my only professional book series about dinosaurs.
Wow.
As much as I love dinosaurs. Like...
You're not planning on writing about a sexcavation that you lead? Come on.
What, sexcavation? What?
Excavation.
Okay, it sounded like you said it's like this new sex position thing we were
Sex
talking.
vacation. No, I didn't say that. I said excavation.
That sounds nice. We could have
from the one who's claimed. Oh Jesus.
Yeah. I could. Man. Like for me,
all the jokes. Moving on.
I was gonna say, for me, and my asexual has to be like we'd kiss here, we'd kiss there.
We kiss near the Eiffel Tower. We kiss at the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We go to Australia and kiss by the Sydney Opera House.
Yeah, that's our sex vacation.
Anyways, so if you did an excavation and decided to write about it, that would count as a professional work about dinosaurs. Just
well,
saying.
if you count professional work about dinosaurs and not just books, of course I got paleobites.
That has a lot of dinosaur content. Go listen if you haven't, listeners, and you're interested in that kind of thing.
So point is, sometimes it's nice to, after you've written things to more in your comfort zone, to step a bit outside of them to challenge yourself.
Fair enough.
But regardless of which week in our set it comes, can you, Twits, make an argument for starting with this one first? I mean, we're gonna do this for every episode, by the way. For this,
but this is a continual question for all of the things we're talking about. I mean, the concept itself is vital to your narrative. Working on an idea that sucks readers in deeper to your world is crucial. That's the start and end of my argument for this one first. But to throw it out, not the way I always do it. Just keep in mind, listeners, this is the same guy who made an entire team of self-created Power Rangers from the colors in a candy pack.
Yes, we'll never let that go. And it wasn't Starburst, even though he's writing a story called...
Starburst exists because of this very thing.
But it's not Starburst that you're basing it off of.
No, I based it off Tropical Skittles.
Why is it called Starburst?
Because it actually has things to do with stars, not about the candy.
And they're bursting, but okay, all right. All right. Well, I think it depends on what kind of story you're trying to write. Again, like, if it's a high-concept story that's all about concept as its selling point, then it should come first for sure. If it's a more character-driven work, then probably not. But that's really all there is to say about that. Like,
yeah, there's not much to add about arguing this one first. We might have more to say about our other episodes coming up.
But for now,
stay tuned.
Yes, but for now, that's it for this week. A huge thank you to all our patrons so far, including Alexis R.
Yes, thank you very much for the support. If you're interested, check the link in the description to become a patron.
Yes, it's at patreon.com/MatthewDonald. But if you want to follow us, contact us personally, you can contact us at mattt@MatthewDonaldCareer.com for any general questions to either co-host.
Episode suggestions, questions, if you have a fancy solution to that nagging problem of unable to remember stuff, please let us know. We'd happily sponsor and create it. I'm using air quotes for you.
All right. If you want to follow me personally, you can follow me at Matthew Don Creator on Facebook, at MatthewDon64 on Twitter, and MatthewDon64 on Instagram. Why 64? Because that's the number of times I pee per day. My liver is messed up, man.
Isn't that your bladder?
Oh, yeah, it is my bladder. My bladder is messed up, man. My kidneys are messed up. My whole body is messed up. I'm going to go pee right now. All right.
There's jokes I could make about this. But anyway.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to the first in our set about your pre-planning works.
Yes, indeed.
But we'll be back next time with something else in that vein.
We've written the good writ, haven't we?
Yep. And keep on writting the good writ, listeners. We'll see you next time. I'm Matt David.
I'm Matt Donald.
And take care. Stay safe. Wash your hands. All that fun stuff.
Get a vaccine. There's no excuse at this point for you not to get a vaccine.
Bye.
Bye. I can't keep aging. Time is poison. I gotta stop it. I gotta suck the time poison out.